Hey there guys, and welcome back. On this week's show, we're making some jig knobs. Well, if you're feeling like you've heard this before, that would be because you have. Quite some time ago on the show, I produced an episode where I showed you guys how to make jig knobs, and it involved drilling a bunch of holes in a board, and eventually with a little bit of scrolling, etc., you ended up with a bunch of jig knobs from some scrap plywood. That is a great method, and I still love it. I still enjoy it. However, I have a new favorite method of making jig knobs. It's quick, it's easy. I love the way the jig knob works. It uses up scrap material that would normally be useless for anything else. It's just a great thing. It really is, and I want to share it with you today. And it all starts off with a little bit of MDF. Well, I can already hear some of you out there saying, MDF, what, has Kenny lost his marbles? No, I haven't. This is actually a piece of hardboard. I didn't have any 1/4-inch MDF in the shop, but we need a piece that is 1/4-inch thick. It can be scrap. It doesn't have to be big. This is much, much bigger than we need. And the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to place a line at 1 1/4 inches up from the bottom all the way across the board. Just like that. Then in the middle, somewhere in the middle, let's just say here at 2 inches, I'm going to place a line at 2 inches, and then I'm going to place a line 5/8 of an inch out from each side of that. So you'll have a center line and then a line that is 5/8 of an inch out, and another one that is 5/8 of an inch outside of your center line. From here now, we're going to take a circle template, and right in the middle, we are going to line up our circle template and draw a 1 3/16 diameter circle. And then using those lines at 5/8 of an inch, we're going to use a 3/4 inch diameter circle template, and we will draw a 3/4 inch diameter circle at each one of those ends, or at each one of those crosshairs, I guess we'll call it. So one right here, and then another 3/4 inch diameter circle right here. Now at this point, you just want to take a ruler, and at the outermost edge of both circles, we're going to place a line and join them up. Just like that. And last but certainly not least, right in the center, right here, right in the center, we're going to punch that and drill a 1/4 inch diameter through hole. Just like that. Now at this point, you have a couple of options. You can cut close to the lines and sand up to those lines of this shape, or you can cut it at the scroll saw. You can use a bandsaw, fret saw, whatever you like. Depending on your skill level, you can cut it up to the lines right off the bat, or you can cut and sand. The choice is yours. But either way, cut perfectly all the way around to get this shape. And that should give you something that looks just like that. And that's all the marking. That's all the layout. That's basically it. But how does this translate into a jig knob? Well, this is your template. That's why I said to cut it as carefully as possible. From there, what you're going to need for each jig knob is 2 pieces of scrap stock. It can be any species you like. In this case, this is poplar. It's what was up in the rack. They are 3/8 of an inch thick, and they measure 1.5 inches wide and 2.5 inches long. You need 2 of them. But in one of them, what we're going to do is right in the center, dead center of this piece of wood, we are going to drill a 1/4 inch diameter through hole. There you go. Now, the last thing that you're going to need here is going to be a T-bolt. Now, for these jig knobs, I prefer to use 1/4 thread, hence the 1/4 inch diameter hole, but I also prefer to use 2.5 inch long T-bolts. The reason for that is simple. It's because you rarely need a T-bolt that is 2.5 inches long. There are times that you do where you need that much thread on a jig knob. However, in most cases they are shorter than this. And with that 2.5 inch distance, you can make up a whole bunch of these in one shot, and all you need to do is cut the thread in order to get it the size that you need. But what we need to do next is mark out for our T-bolt. And this is one of my favorite parts of how simple this is. We're going to place our T-bolt down through the middle and lining it up so that the T of our bolt goes lengthwise along our board. We're going to take a pencil and we're going to trace around our T-bolt, just like this. And once we're happy with our tracing, we're going to need our little trim router. Well, I've installed in my trim router a 1/4 inch upcut spiral bit. Now, if you don't have that, don't worry about it. Any straight bit will suffice. But what we're going to do, I have it set so that the router bit is protruding from the router base here, the same thickness as what the T of our T-bolt is. So this thickness right here that I have pinched between my fingers, that is the distance that this bit sticks out from our router base. And all I'm going to do is that little circle there, or oblong, or whatever you want to call it, it's misshapen no matter how you look at it, I'm just going to carefully route it out. It takes seconds. Let me show you how quick this is. I'll film it in real time. We have a few little fuzzy areas that are sticking up here from the routing. I'm just going to use a 1/2 inch chisel, trim those off so that they are flush. Doesn't have to be super perfect, it just takes a second or two. There we go. And now at this point we will unclamp this and just check to make sure that our T-bolt fits in there, and it does. You can see it's not 100% perfect fit. I don't really care. The main thing is that it can't twist. So it's now sitting in here, and what we're going to do is, with our bolt installed in here, we're going to take our second piece of poplar, apply wood glue all to one side there, and we are going to glue these together, lining up our edges as best as we can. And with that clamped up, we will now leave this overnight to dry. Well, it is the next day and our 2 pieces of poplar are dried up, and this is what you end up with at this point in time. Really nothing special, but at this point you'll want to get your template that you made, and you want to take it and place it down over top of your T-bolt, just like that. And by holding it in place, trace around your template. And there is your jig knob marked out. Now, you have several options at this point. You can use the scroll saw. You just want to be careful that this bolt, being the 2.5 inches long, you want to be careful that your arm, your top arm of your scroll saw, isn't going to strike that bolt, because it could damage your scroll saw. If you don't have a scroll saw, you can take it over to the bandsaw and you can rough cut this around to the edge just outside of the line, and then you can take it over to the belt sander and just sand up to the line to finish it off. If you don't have a bandsaw, you can just sand it. You can just take it over to the belt sander and sand it up to the line until you get your shape. So I'm going to get this cut, and then I'll show you what we do with it at that point. And now the last thing that you want to do is give this thing a sanding. Remember what this is now. This is a jig knob, which means it's going to get a lot of use with your hands. So you want to break those sharp corners. So I've just got a piece of 220 grit sandpaper here, and I'm just breaking the corners around the edge of the jig knob to make it so that you're not going to get cut when you use it. And that, my friends, is all there is to it. And there you have it. Shop-made jig knobs. Now, guys, I'm telling you, these have become my go-to knobs for my projects whenever I need a jig knob. Although I really like the other ones with the kind of knurled edge, I really love these ones. They're way more comfortable than the other ones to use. They're much faster to make. And like I said, you can make them out of the smallest little pieces of stock. 1.5 inches by, what was it, 2.5 inches or something like that. That's some pretty small stock. So any kind of scrap, you can make it. Now, the best part about it, or one of the things I like about it, is that you can make multiples of these things. If you have, say, 2 3/8 strips of stock that is, I don't know, 16 inches long, just do multiples, end to end to end. Lay it out, mark it out. You only need to mark the center holes, and as long as you leave the space in between to be able to separate them into jig knobs, all you have to do is mark the marking for your center hole. You drill that 1/4 inch hole and then mark your bolt, do the routing, and then insert your bolts and glue the whole strip together. Cut them as one unit. You can make like 10 of these things in a matter of half an hour. It is unbelievable how fast these are and how comfortable they are to use. Now, my other ones that I demonstrated on the show before, they were a female version. They would screw on over a bolt. But these ones are the male version that screw into a nut. But what if you wanted to make these in the female version? Well, you can. And all you have to do is that little cutout, okay? You drill your 1/4 inch holes, but you drill them through both pieces. And that little cutout, the one that you route, all you have to do is screw a bolt onto the end of a T-nut, mark that out, and insert the nut in your sandwich kind of thing, in that lamination instead of the T-bolt. It works just as well. You just have to make sure that you have a hole on the opposite side so that your bolt can go through once you're using it as a female style knob. Either way, guys, these things are dead simple to make. They're super fast. I think they look great. They feel great in your hand, and they're dirt cheap. Dirt cheap. For the price of the bolts, I think I got them for about 60 cents a piece, the bolts. Scrap stock that was unusable, so you're making each jig knob for less than $1. How can you go wrong? And you got some fun shop project to work on while you're waiting for glue on other projects to dry. Guys, don't discount this project. It is useful, fun, it's so practical, and you can make them ahead of time and then just cut them to size as you need them. So the next time you're making a project and you need the jig knob, it's a matter of reaching into some of the ones that you've already made from some of the scrap stock and just cutting the bolt to length. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed today's content. I hope you're going to try this for yourself. If you haven't already, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. You click that bell and then you're not going to miss the notifications of future episodes of the program. Now, there are some of you out there that have contacted me to say, Kenny, I clicked that bell, but I'm not getting notifications. YouTube changed things up. It used to be that they would send you out an email. I much prefer that system. They have completely wiped out the email thing. But what they're doing now is on that side column on the left-hand side of the screen where you see my subscriptions, any of the channel names that have a dot beside it, that's your notification. That is them telling you that a new video is up on my channel. So for those of you that are asking, that's the way YouTube notifies you now. Guys, I want to thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed it. As I said, I hope some of you are going to try this for yourself. And more importantly, I hope you're going to join me again next week when I bring you yet another Alternative Tuesdays.